As we continue in our creation series, we're reading from Isaiah chapter 55, verses 12 and 13. So you'll go out in joy. You'll be led into a whole and complete life. The mountains and the hills will lead the parade, bursting with song. All the trees of the forest will join the procession, exuberant with applause. No more thistles, but giant sequoias. No more thorn bushes, but stately pines. Monuments to me, to God. Living and lasting evidence of God. So we do have a guest speaker with us this morning. Dave Michael's going to come forward and share our message. And for those who don't know, Dave served as superintendent in the Fort Wayne area for 8 years, and now he's on our band. And also, Dave's been my mentor over the last 24 years of ministry, and started in 2001 as an associate under Dave. And I made a lot of fun of Dave's age. As the senior, I called him the senior pastor. And now my staff likes to crack jokes about my age. And Dave would always say, "Hey, buddy, it's going to come around." And here we are. But Dave's here to share from his heart and from Scripture the blessing of creation. So thank you for being here with us, Dave. Let's thank him for being here.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate the invitation to come and share with you this morning. I had just mentioned to Rob, usually I'm the guitar player over here about 2 Sundays a month, and some of you might be saying, wait a minute, isn't that the guitar player? You never want a guitar player to talk. Those guys can barely string a sentence together, So I offered to Rob to cover for him on a week that he was gone or sick or feeling his age. And this was one of those weeks, so so it's good to be here. It was really fun to have Rob right out of seminary come to the church where I was lead pastor, and he and Leslie, just been married a couple years. They came in tow with just one baby in diapers, a babe in arms, Eli. And the others weren't even dreamed of yet. And he was with us for a period there before he started leading churches on his own. And he was there long enough for us to get some really great stories about Rob. And I'm not going to go into them now. It's not appropriate. But if you ever have a roast, I'm going to tell a story, 2 stories this morning, and draw some lessons out of each of those stories. Something that's a little different in this is I'm going to tell stories where one of the central figures in it is my late wife, Ann. Now, this is my now wife down here, Becky. And you might think, wow, that's weird. He's up there talking about his then wife and in front of his now wife. I want you to know I only have, she's heard these stories before. When we first met, one of the things we bonded over was that we both lost our spouses to cancer. And we were both caregivers for that. It took quite a while for us to tell our stories of what we'd been through in that journey. And by the way, an aside is, I thought through my ministry I always respected the caregivers because I'd seen a lot of them through the years, and then I became one. Wow. My utmost respect for those of you that have done that. So Becky and I we met after we both lost our spouses and got to know each spouse by stories that we would tell. And we don't have the jealousy that some couples have. We've respected each other's spouse. I appreciate her late spouse. His name is Roger, and he loved her well. And really appreciate that. And she'd tell me stories about him. There are pictures of our late spouses hanging around the house. She's told me stories. Sometimes she'd even say, you know, Roger and I had this difference of opinion on this. And more than once I've said to her, I'd have to side with Roger on this one, you know. And she's gotten to know Ann, my late wife. One of the things I really liked that we did was when we got married 2 years ago, we did our own toast. It was a very small wedding, family, and just a few friends on her side and a few friends on my side. Some of those friends were Roger's friends, and on my side, they were Ann's friends. And we knew this would be hard for some of them. So we decided we would do our own toast. Because these folks knew us, and we didn't want to turn it into a roast, you know. So we did our own toast, and I'm not sure whose idea it was, but I did the first toast, and I toasted Roger. And then she toasted Ann. And so we're able to talk about that. She's heard these stories before, and as far as I know, she's okay with this. Okay, so thank you. So here's the story. I retired 10 years ago and decided one of the ways I would de-stress after being in pastoral ministry for a long time, and especially after being a district superintendent for 8 years and 1/2 months, is that I would do a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. Now, for those of you that don't know, obviously it goes through the Appalachian Mountains on the East Coast. I was telling somebody I was going to do this, and they said, oh, that's interesting. How long will it take you? Like 3 weeks? Okay, the Appalachian Trail is just under 2,200 miles long. It took me a little longer than 3 weeks to do this. Now, young people can do it in like 3 months if they're really speed demons, or 4 months. I was hoping for 5. It took me 6. Okay, I was part of the geriatric crew out there, Rob. And the recent retirees out there hiking. We went considerably slower. And I had some foot problems. We all had lived on ibuprofen out there, well, of our age. And but Ann, I knew it was going to take 5 months, and I didn't want to be separated from Ann for that long. And she wanted to go along and have some kind of adventure herself, but there was no way she was going to walk 2,200 miles. You also climb 93 miles in altitude, up and down, up and down, up and down. So you lose that 93 miles. Can you imagine? I averaged 3,000 miles a day up and down. 3,000 miles. Wow. Been a rough week for me too, Rob. I averaged 3,000 feet up and down a day. That's not better, right? A 300-story building. Up and down, up and down, up and down. We called them PUDs, pointless up and downs. She wanted to go with us, and but no way she's going to hike. So we bought an RV, and she traveled along the edge of the mountain range and then would drive in, towing a car. She'd drive in and come and get me when she could. And then I got to stay in the RV with her and eat better food than that freeze-dried stuff. And then when there wasn't access or she couldn't get in there, I'd spend the night on the trail. So, I mean, she was amazing to do that. I didn't get permission to say this. Becky told me there's no way she's going to do that. Right? And so we participated in this adventure together. Now, when you do a through hike, one thing is we had friends come out and join us every once in a while. And Rob came out with his two boys, who I really didn't get a chance to know. One wasn't born when we were in ministry together at Hunter Talon. The other one was just an infant. And Gabe was 12, I think, and Eli was 14. And Rob, I don't know how old you were, but you were getting older. And we thought, we'd have trouble I pulled back because when I had my trail legs, I could go a long ways in a day. And but Rob and I had trouble keeping up with Gabe and especially Eli. And then later, Eli got his eyes open to what a through hike might be, and he talked with other through hikers, and later he took a through hike of the Appalachian Trail, much to Leslie's dismay when she found out that the way an unsupported through hiker resupplies is they get to the trail crossing of a road and they hitchhike into town. I explained this to her, and the response was just amazing. I think she's forgiven me for that now. At the first service, she said, But Eli did his own through hike, and he's just an amazing hiker. He went a lot faster than I did. So what we do is you get up every day, and I averaged just a little over a mini marathon every day, a little under 14 miles a day. And every once in a while, you have to take what we call a 0 day. You stop. And now, if you're unsupported like Eli, he did laundry, he bought food, ate at a restaurant, a lot, 5,000 calories a day. But Ann was doing that for me. So my first 0 day, I didn't have anything to do. I was going to put my feet up. She said, it was right before the Smoky Mountains, about 120, 140 miles into the journey. I wanted to wait a little bit because the Smokies were going to have a blizzard. I knew I was going to be walking through snow and ice. I was going to have to stay on the trail, and the lows would be around 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And I was hoping it was going to warm up. It did not. But at Fontana Dam, right at the southern edge of the park, took my first 0 day. I was going to put my feet up. Ann said, let's go to the Joyce Kilmer Preserve. I said, what is that and who is that? And she said, it's a stand of old growth trees. It's never been cut. And Joyce Kilmer, anybody know? He's the one, or he or she, is it a he or she? He? Okay. Wrote the poem, I Think That I Shall Never See a Poem as Lovely as a Tree. And she said there are old oaks in here, a couple 100 years old, 13 feet across at the bottom. And they just tower. And she said it's just a 2-mile hike. I said, let me introduce you to what the word 0 means, And she said, come on, it's just a 2-mile hike, and this is a cool place. And so we went there, about a 40-minute drive to get to this place, and did a very slow walk around. About 2/3 of the way through, we came across a man sitting on the forest floor in kind of a meditative pose. We could tell he had a lot of Native American First Nation in him. Long black hair, the chiseled features that we associate with First Nation people. And he was meditating, very quiet, off to the side of the trail. My wife would talk to everybody. Late wife. And she went over to talk. I was behind her for a ways because I was going slow. And she went over to talk with. I wanted to yell, don't, he's meditating or something. But she went over there, got his life story, and came back and told me what he was doing there. His mother had just died. And extended family and community had come in, and they'd done their ceremonies and everything, and most of them had left, but some of his relatives were still there. And he said he told his brother he needed to go and talk to the ancient ones. I said, what's that? And she said, the ancient ones, these trees. Said he came to talk to the trees because it embodied the spirit of those who've gone on before. And he came to listen to what the ancient ones might say to him. Oh, I remembered that. How cool is that? And so, went about our hike. That's story one, and I guess the only lesson maybe to draw out of that is, this. So I walked 2,200 miles. I'd guess 80% of it, I was walking through the woods. I want you just to guess in your head, how many of those miles do you think went through old growth forest that had never been logged? How many miles? Just think about it. Pick a number. This isn't like the peanut butter or the M&M thing. How many M&M? Just think about it. Here's the answer. As far as I can tell from my experience and looking, 1 mile in Maine. They were a stand of pines. They were phenomenal. Out of all, I didn't even calculate the percentage that is. Every once in a while you'd come across an old tree that had survived for some reason. The logs weren't good for anything and they left the tree standing. They're so rare they mark them on the map. Be sure and stop at the Kiefer Oak and look up. I wanted to tell you what percentage of the country landmass east of the Mississippi River is old growth forest. But the answer is, well, it kind of depends on how you define old growth and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. One person said it's about 1%. Everything else had been cut. All those miles and miles and miles of walking through the woods was second and third growth. They were kind of stunted trees. Some people that are in favor of indiscriminate logging will say, and this is true, there are more trees now than when the Europeans arrived on this continent. Of course, that's true. You take one oak that's 13 feet wide and covers an acre and cut it down, and 30 or 40 will grow in what was its shadow, but there'll be these little things. I think one lesson out of this is we need the ancient ones. As we walked through the Joyce Kilmer Preserve, it was stunning. It was like walking through an old cathedral. Your soul was just drawn up. Have any of you walked through visited the redwoods in California? Anybody done that? Same spirit. You just walk in there and you're just going, can't believe. We need the ancient ones. Obviously, that First Nation person had a connection with them. We need them too, just to inspire awe, or for what the Japanese call forest bathing, to go and just sit there and listen. In this busy world that we are busy paving with everything, we need this. I think a lesson out of this is that we should support our national parks and national forest. Instead of gutting the budget or selling our lands to private developers, preserve what's there. I would like to see at least a tithe, 10%, set aside. Better yet would be a Sabbath, almost 15%, set aside out west is where most of the set-aside is. That's where most of our old-growth forest is, because when President Teddy Roosevelt had his grand idea to create the national park system, we'd already clear-cut a good chunk of the eastern coast, and it was so developed that nobody wanted to lose access to their land. So we set aside an outsized portion out west, and it's phenomenal out there. We should support national parks, national forests, because this is one of America's greatest ideas, is to set these things aside. Now, that leads to the second part. Well, why on Sunday morning would we talk about something like this? Because, where's God in this? And the Bible does say a lot of times, the mountains will clap, and or the mountains will dance, and the trees will clap and praise God. But that's figurative language. When Isaiah said this, he said it to a people who were in exile in Babylon, who weren't clapping and dancing much. He said, creation will take care of that until you're restored, until you come home. Why? It was important to that guy. Why is that important to us? Do that. Why bring it up on a Sunday? Second story. 2 years after that through hike, Anne had a seizure. And that led to a diagnosis of a very aggressive brain cancer. And I had done funerals for people with this type of brain cancer. We'd lost colleagues, pastors who had it. And the doctors told us, you have 16 to 24 months. And so our retirement, where we could enjoy travel and stuff, was very short. And I went into caregiver mode for 2 years. Tough journey. That's why I respect you folks that have done this, or somebody who's done it. They deserve your respect. One of the hardest things I'd ever done. Right? So 2 years after the diagnosis, Anne is in hospice care in our home. Our children are all out west. And so this was in the first year of the pandemic, before the vaccine. So you can imagine how hard it was for them to travel and to spend time with us. But they were all there multiple times. They really sacrificed. Some put their career kind of on hold to be there. So they were all there as Anne went through hospice care, the last part of her journey. So hospice was in. I have tremendous respect for hospice workers too. Wow. And my experience had always been that hospice nurses were the most accurate about telling you how much time you had left. Don't listen to the doctors. Listen to the nurses. Well, the nurse told us she had about 5 to 7 days. So the kids rushed home. 2 of them were already there. Our son rushed home. She lasted 2 months. So here we are. It's a pandemic out there. We can't go out and let off steam. We're all kind of in there. It's high pressure, high stress. And frankly, we were getting on each other's nerves. And so there came a time, I forget when it was, how far into the 2-month period, where Anne seemed to be stable. And I said to the kids, I need out of here. And I thought they needed me out of there. I said, I have to go talk to the ancient ones. And told them the story. So I took off and went out to Bicentennial Woods. which is one of the Acres Land Trust properties. Acres is a fantastic group also to support. They buy sensitive land and set it aside. And they say they manage it like Mother Nature did. And Bicentennial Woods is in North Allen County, not too far from where we lived. And I knew, it was called Bicentennial Woods because they said there were some 200-year-old trees in there. I don't know if that's true or not, but there are some big honking trees in there. And I went in there and used that a lot to prepare for my through hike, 6 miles, 8 miles, 10 miles, up to 22 miles one time just to see if my body could do it because I'm old. And I knew there were some old trees in there. And went out there and I did a 2-mile loop. And I knew there was this one really gnarly big thing right at the end of the trail before you finish this loop. And I went by some big ones and I'd stop every once in a while, but I was saving it. I don't know why. I'm going to stop at that big one. And I went to that tree, a little bit off the main trail, a little side trail. It was about 8-10 feet off the trail. I was just standing there looking at it, and then I walked up to it. Now, this is going to sound weird. I'm not a mystic. My favorite disciple is Thomas. Get me the facts. Let me, see this spreadsheets. I want data. But I went up to this tree and I just leaned against it. And let it have it. I just poured out my heart, just said what I was going through. And strangest thing happened. This doesn't happen very often. It's only happened a handful of times in my life where I heard a voice. I'm not sure where the voice came from, if it was my mind creating it, if there was something in this tree, if it was God. I don't know, but I got done pouring out my heart and just heard. Some words heard clearly, the rest was kind of an impression. What I heard was, stand strong. And the implication was, you can stand strong. Stand tall. You can stand tall. Survive the storm. You can survive the storm. And then, but know that someday I will fall to the ground. I appreciated the first part of that last bit. I still am not. Okay, I know what it means. We're all going to die. Thanks. Very comforting. But I took encouragement from that. And whatever it was, I think it came from the ancient ones. I wrote about it at the time, journaled it, and put it on social media, but this is the first time, first service was the first time I've talked about it with people, some of whom I do not know well. It was a little hard for me. That's another reason, though, that we need the ancient ones, these old trees. Not just to find awe, but to look at them and say, we don't stand alone. Like the redwoods, they're intertwined. They stand together. They stand with us. And I guess what I draw out of it is this for you. Those of you that are caregivers. Those of you that will be someday. Draw strength from outside yourself. I tried to do a lot of this on my own. And we just don't have enough strength on our own to do it. Find a place, your cathedral. I'd suggest old trees. It might be a person. Might be a mountain. Might be a cathedral. Might be a sanctuary. The open plain. Draw strength from something else, which leads me to this. We have a chance here today to be with the ancient ones. In the Apostles' Creed, they call it the communion of saints. And so, when we have the opportunity to take communion, it's not just a personal thing. We don't do it alone. We stand together. And we have communion with the ancient ones. Becky has communion with Roger. Me with Ann. And beyond that, the people who are our teachers, who went before us in the faith. For me, it'd be Rich Mullins, a poet, musician. Christian Gadfly. It'd be John and Charles Wesley. It'd be St. Francis, St. Ignatius of Loyola. It'd be the disciples, including Thomas. But most of all, in the communion of saints, we meet the ancient one. The one of whom it was said, in the beginning was the Word, and that Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth.